What's up, guys? I wanted to talk a little bit about what I think is missing from today's games and why they don't feel as good as games from many years ago. Now, I'm not saying that all games today are not good because there's a lot of good games, and obviously on a technical level they are far superior. They just look better technically. There's a lot more you can do today with the technology. So on a technical level there's no comparison to games from, like, let's say the PS2 era. But there is a general feeling you get when you play these games, and the games just don't feel the same. And I one of the things that for me is missing, and it's not like completely missing because you still see this aspect in today's games at times, but you don't see it like back in the PS2 era. Like, and one of those things is stealth. You don't see stealth implemented in games as much today as back then. When you played a game back then, you didn't rush through it. Like, you just took in everything. You took your time with the game more because there was a slower pace to everything. The game, it was more about taking everything in, sneaking around, completing objectives, and a lot of times you really had to take your time to think about how to attack certain challenges or certain objectives. For example, one of my favorite all-time games is a game called Siphon Filter. Actually, it was a series. I really loved those games. Those were some of my favorite games growing up. The original early Resident Evil games, um, the early Tomb Raider games. I loved those games. Those were slow-paced games. You took your time getting through each level, and especially in Siphon Filter. If I don't know how many of you guys ever played that game, but or those games, because it was a series, like I said. But there was a lot of stealth. You didn't just run around like you do with most games now and just blowing everything up, shooting everything in sight. After a while, that stuff becomes, uh, it just, you become immune to it. It doesn't have the same impact. You know, you become desensitized to all the violence and the explosions and stuff. After a while, it's not so cool anymore because it's just constantly in your face now, and everything is running at 100 miles an hour, and you're just running around indiscriminately, just shooting and doing all kinds of stuff. And after a while, to me, it becomes boring. But I go back to like games like Siphon Filter, Tomb Raider, um, the old Resident Evil games. They were meant to be taken at a slower pace. You really took in the environment, and a lot, and especially in Siphon Filter, you really had to think about how are you going to get from point A to point B, because you couldn't be spotted by an enemy. If you were spotted, game over, right? Obviously, you start again, but at whatever checkpoint. But the point is, you didn't just run through areas. You really had to watch the AI, how they moved around. You had to figure out the movements and how do I get from point A to point B without being spotted. That is stealth gameplay. Sneaking up on an enemy and killing them quietly, right? Hitman's another great series too. The older Hitman games. And I really enjoy stealth. And we don't see that kind of gameplay that much anymore. Yes, it's still there, but it's not like it used to be. And I really appreciated games like Siphon Filter. And those of you who don't know, go on YouTube and just check out the old games, and you'll see that how great that game was. Now, yeah, when you see the graphics, you got to remember this is PS2 era, so yeah, it's going to be cringeworthy to watch because we're so used to much better looking games, but if you really take in the game and you see how it is, it's awesome. I remember that game had a taser. You don't even see tasers anymore, very rarely in a game. And you could shoot an enemy from a long distance, and you had a taser with a cable. And if you held the button down, not only would you shock the enemy, but if you held the button down, you'd shock him to the point where he just spontaneously combusted into flames, and you hear him screaming. Go and YouTube the taser on Siphon Filter, and you'll see what I mean. And I remember how much fun playing those games were, and it's because those games were slower paced. There was more thinking involved. There was more stealth, and we don't see that much anymore of that aspect of gaming. And I think that's a big reason why games today just don't have the same level of enjoyment or sense of accomplishment, because they don't feel like these older games. Besides all the other garbage I've talked about, DLC and all this loot crate garbage. I'm not going to get into that. I already talked about that. But just the game itself, and I really enjoy that. Sneaking around undetected, killing people without being spotted. And I don't see that anymore. So that's obviously not the only reason games today don't feel as good as games from the past, but to me that's one of the major things that I see missing from today's games. Now it's every game is designed to just run around and just shoot everything in sight. And after a while, that, believe it or not, it just doesn't have the same impact. So what do you guys think about that stuff? Have you played any of these older games I'm talking about? And if you have, what do you think? I look forward to your comments, and that's it.